BLACKWINGS are back, and they're better than ever thanks to the new support they received with the Blackwinged Assault Dragon in their new structure deck. So I've been taking a little bit of time out to learn more about how to play this deck with some of the new cards, because there have been quite a few since the last time I played BLACKWINGS. We're pretty much, pretty confident in terms of how we're playing it now. Basically what you're looking to do with this deck is you're looking to set up either 2 or 3 of your level 10 Synchro monsters with your Blackwing Assault Dragon, inflicting 700 points of damage to your opponent every time they activate a monster effect, as well as having the ability to sacrifice itself to nuke the board. Your Blackwing Full Armor Master being completely unaffected by card effects and stealing your opponent's monsters, as well as supplemented by a couple of non-level 10 boss monsters like the Abyss Dragon and the Draco Berserker. The idea is you're just going to combo like crazy, summon out all these powerful monsters, and win the game by sort of grinding your opponent down, relying on hand traps to interrupt their plays, so on and so forth. So it's a really cool deck. We've got a few replays lined up, some really good plays, some sort of situations, combos, whatever it is. We're going to talk about them, and then we're going to do a deck profile at the end of the video. So if you want to see the deck card for card, stick around for that. If you're new to the channel, or maybe you're coming back and you just haven't subscribed yet, I'd ask you to do so. Subscribing does help me out, as well as leaving a like on the video if you actually enjoy what you're watching. It lets me know what people do and don't like, so I would appreciate it. But yeah, let's just get into the gameplay. Alrighty, getting into replay number 1. So this one's going to be pretty quick and straightforward, just showing off some of the main sort of combos within the deck. What you ultimately want to be seeing is Simoon, right? Simoon is the best sort of starter card from within the deck because it allows you to grab your Black Whirlwind, Sudri being a close second. So Simoon will activate by banishing a Blackwing monster in your hand. You get to set Black Whirlwind directly from your deck onto the field, and then immediately normal summon Simoon without tributing, in addition to your normal summon set, meaning you trigger the Black Whirlwind to search your deck for a card. Now what does Black Whirlwind actually do? Whenever a monster is normal summoned to your field, you get to search your deck for another Blackwing monster with less attack points than the one you just summoned. So Simoon is able to search for another Sudri, which we just banished. We still have our regular normal summon, so we can use this alongside our Sudri to search for multiple cards. So Sudri is going to grab us Vata, which is another important starter card. Blackwing Whirlwind is going to grab us Chinook, which is a bit of like a negate, a hand trap. We're going to summon Vata. Vata then has the ability to send itself and monsters from the deck to the graveyard to conduct a synchro summon. So we're going to send a level 2 and a level 4 in order to bring out the Black Winged Dragon. We're going to use Shamal. We did get the ordering a little bit wrong here, but I still wanted to show it off. You're supposed to use Shamal first and then do the Black Winged Dragon play. Small mistake, but ultimately it doesn't matter because we're still going to trigger off the Whirlwind regardless by synchro summoning using this into our Borea Storm. So Borea Storm gets to basically send a Blackwing from deck to graveyard to change its level to that monster's level. Black Feather Whirlwind will summon a monster from our graveyard with less attack points than our Borea Storm, and Shamal is going to add from our graveyard back to our hand or Harmattan. Pretty simple stuff. You're just generating a ton of resources, sending Sharnga. Sharnga can banish itself from the graveyard later on to pop a face-up card so long as you control a Blackwing Synchro. Now we're going to synchro summon into the Blackwinged Assault Dragon, which is huge. We're going to bounce the Whirlwind back to hand so we can activate it again because it's once per turn, but it's not a hard once per turn, meaning your Zephyros can allow you to use it multiple times. We're going to bring out our Harmattan, using these 3 to synchro summon into the Blackwing Full Armor Master, allowing us to basically resummon our banished Shamal. We didn't really have a ton in our graveyard we wanted to summon, so bringing back the banished Shamal is going to be useful for later. Now we can banish from the graveyard to summon out another copy of the Blackwinged Assault Dragon using its built-in effects. So this card can also be special summoned from your extra deck by banishing a Blackwinged Dragon as well as 1 tuner synchro monster from your graveyard. So banishing the Borea Storm, which is a tuner, as well as the Blackwinged Dragon, allows you to bring out a second Blackwinged Assault Dragon. This means every single time our opponent activates a monster effect, they take 1400 points of damage. We've got a negate and a completely unaffected boss monster. They're not getting past it. It's as simple as that. GG's. So let's get into some more interactive games where we're setting up these plays against opponents who actually want to win the game. Already getting into game 2 here, we're going to be seeing a bit of a more interesting one. Our opponent doesn't exactly set up a lot turn 1, or at least it doesn't look like it, but they're playing Melfies. The way Melfies work is that they special summon themselves from your hand during the end of your turn, and whenever your opponent normal special summons a monster or declares an attack, you can basically tag these guys out into more Melfies on your opponent's turn. So it only doesn't look like much, but that's because he's planning on playing on my turn. Now, one of the best possible situations you'll see in this deck is opening up Simoon and a copy of Black Whirlwind. This card is not once per chain, it is not once per turn, it is not once per anything. So seeing a copy of Simoon and the Black Whirlwind is incredible. We were playing Gust in this early build, but Gust turned out to be pretty ass, so we cut it. We just replaced it with a second we were only playing one Harmattan here, we ended up replacing it just with another Harmattan, which was infinitely better. So just pretend that this is Harmattan, basically, it doesn't matter. We just say to pass on the Maxi. The one thing about Melfies is they don't exactly have fantastic ability to push for lethal, so we were happy enough sort of taking our foot off the pedal, thinking, you know what, we don't need to play in the Maxi, we'll just wait until our next turn because there's no way he's finishing us off that quickly. So we're going to go Simoon here, Simoon banishing the Gust from the hand, we're going to trigger off our Maxi as well early, but it doesn't matter, he's got Ash Blossom, that's totally fine. I really would have rather him Ash something else, but what can you do? The reason, by the way, the reason we were Maxing is because, again, on summon, his Melfies are going to start triggering and summoning and spamming the board. So we summon Simoon. That's going to trigger both copies of Whirlwind to get searching. So we can grab 2 monsters with less than 1600 attack points. So you're going to see that having 2 copies of Black Whirlwind really ramps up the amount of cards you grab. So we grab a Sudri and we grab a Chinook, which gives us that negate. We're going to activate our Whirlwind. Unfortunately, we didn't have to grab a Shamal for it, which is fine. Normal summon Sudri, activate both Black Whirlwinds, so that means we get to add 3 cards from our deck to our hand. 2 monsters with less than 1400 attack points, and then any 1 card in the deck that lists the Black-Winged Dragon on its text. So we grab Sharnga, we grab Harmattan, and we grab a Vata. So normally we would have grabbed Vata off of one of the Whirlwinds and Shamal off of Sudri, but we already have the Black Feather Whirlwind, meaning Shamal isn't really that useful right now. So we're just going to continue to play through the Melfies. Again, he is going to start like drawing a bunch of cards, generating some support. Now he's actually going to make a play using the Penny. So Penny is in fact going to be a little bit problematic. Synchro Summoning using the hand off into the Merry Melfies, which is going to target a card on our field and bounce it back to the hand, which is slightly unfortunate considering we just summoned our Black-Winged Dragon. We don't mind this card getting destroyed or something like that, but getting bounced back to the hand is definitely less than ideal. We attempted to Chinook here, but I completely forgot that the Sprite Elf was protecting it, so it sucks to be me, I guess. That was a bad play. But it's totally fine because it serves multiple purposes. This is going to like Chain Link 8, right? This whole hand, this situation is out of hand, right? Chain Link 8, pretty nuts. We're going to talk about it as it resolves in reverse. Mudora, shuffle back, Noctivision, special summon, Sprite Elf, special summon. Chinook will not only negate the Sprite Elf, it will also reduce its attack points by 700, and it will send one of my Blackwing Synchro monsters to the graveyard. So we get to dump a Boreas Storm to the grave for later on. That is a surprise tool that will help us later. So Merry Melfies will bounce itself back, tagging out for an Exceed monster, the Melfi Mommy. Then it's going to bounce our Blackwing Dragon back to our extra deck and equip on a material. We're going to tribute off. We're using our Sudri's effect to bring out a token. Now we can go into the Blackwing Dragon once more. Just the traditional Synchro Summon this time before going into the Full Armor Master. This is the Full Armor Master is like the ultimate fallback plan, because if you just don't want your opponent to be able to do anything about it, just bring out this guy. It's unaffected by our card effects. What are they going to do? We're able to banish the Boreas Storm that we sent there earlier in the turn, as well as the Blackwing Dragon that we just used as Synchro fodder to bring out a Blackwing Assault Dragon as well. So this is pretty awesome. We're able to just swing in, get a pile of damage off against this guy, dismantling the plays that he had set up through the albeit limited interruption that he was able to establish. We do take some minor damage at the end of the turn, but that's just fine because our opponent only has so many cards they can use left, and they realize that playing Melfies, they're going to need to activate a lot more than 5 monster effects if they're going to stand a chance against us. So unfortunately, they don't have a chance but to scoop, basically. Yeah, pretty good game. Let's get into game 3. I don't mind playing too heavily into tier limits, but whenever they establish a board like this, it becomes a little bit obnoxious. We're going to bring out the Mudora here, triggering off Agido as well as Gravekeeper's Trap, dropping the Exchange of the Spirit. So right away, this means we cannot activate cards in our graveyard, and we cannot special summon cards from our graveyard. Automatically a pretty big deal. Keldo and Mudora here, they're going to be able to allow our opponent to shuffle cards from our graveyards back into our decks. Agito's going to basically, Agito and Gelbeck, if I could speak, are going to mill 10 cards. Sulek's going to search and Havness is going to allow him to fusion summon by shuffling back into the deck. So out comes Kit Kalos. Then Sulek's going to allow him to grab a Showdown from the deck directly, and Kelbeck mill an additional 5 cards, as well as grabbing back a trap card from the graveyard, because remember, Kelbeck and Agito have additional effects. So Agito allows you to mill 5 cards, well, Kelbeck and Agito mill 5 cards from both players' decks. If you have Exchange of the Spirit in the graveyard, Agito allows you to mill an additional 5 cards from either player's deck, and Kelbeck allows you to grab a trap card from your graveyard and set it onto the field. So we're dealing with Sulek as well. Kikalos, Scream, and Merly are all now going to activate. This guy is just absolutely popping off. He is going crazy and loving it. Shuffling back 3 for the Kaleido Heart. Kaleido Heart bringing itself out 3k, spinning cards back to the deck. Grabbing Tearlament's Crime to set up, so we've got total graveyard shut off. We've got 2 shufflers, we've got a spin, we've got negates. We've now got a Omni Negate in a counter trap form. We've got the Time Thief Redoer, which will help him set up even more plays, pitching his Shadow into the graveyard now to fuse with the Kit Kalos for a Rule Kalos. So Rule Kalos now negating our normal summons, and then just to top it off, we're just going to normal summon Cyberstein for Naturia Exterio. So we got Monster Negate, Omni Negate, Summon Negate, Infinite Spell Trap Negates, we got a Spin, we got Graveyard Shuffling, and our graveyard is turned off thanks to Gravekeeper's Trap, and Gravekeeper's Trap will be able to search for a Kelbeck out of his hand as well. Now that's pretty tough, I'm not gonna lie. That's kind of tough. We top deck in Infinite Impermanence, which does nothing in this hand. He's gonna grab a monster from our deck. I'm pretty sure he grabs a Shamal. We're going to banish Borea to additionally normal summon our Simoon from the hand with our Black Whirlwind in play. He's going to grab the Kelbeck, of course. We knew that he was going to do this. We're going to normal summon Simoon. We grab a monster with 1600 or less attack points from the deck. We grab Sidri, normal summon the Sidri, get double search in here. So Sidri's going to activate, searching for a Blackwing Dragon related card, and then the Black Whirlwind is going to grab us another lower attack point monster. So we grab Sharinga and Shamal because we already have Vata in hand. That's totally fine. We're going to activate the Black Whirlwind, special summoning out our Sharinga to bring out the Draco Berserker. Now, this was summoned in an effort to attempt to dissuade him from using his Tearlament's Rule Kalos to negate one of our summons. We really don't want him to negate Vata's effect, so that was sort of meant to dissuade him from doing it. Unfortunately, we didn't really give him a chance to activate anything. We couldn't afford for him to negate any of our cards there. We know he has Sulek and Crime set. So we instead opt for the Full Armor Master play. Full Armor Master will at least give us some sort of offensive pressure. He can't crime this, Sulek this, bounce this, spin this, anything like that. So it is going to be rather difficult to get rid of. The Sulek is going to prevent us from doing a massive amount of damage here by shutting off our Draco Berserker's additional attacks. So we are unfortunately just going to have to take out the monsters they have available to us. We could have taken out the Time Thief here, but I feel like getting rid of Rolkalos was going to be more important. You could argue that maybe that wasn't the smartest of plays, but ultimately I just wanted to get rid of as many of his big monsters as I possibly can. We've got Imperm and Call by the Grave set, and without that Exterior we can actually play them. Time Thief Reader is going to grab an Imperm from the top of the deck and give himself a Wedge counter thanks to our Full Armor Master. Dropping the Kelbeck to the graveyard to grab the Sword Oracle. That is going to trigger the Kelbeck to get milling and recycling a trap card, except he doesn't have one to recycle. He is going to use Kaleido Heart, attempting to spin back Imperm into the deck. We're going to quickly use that on the Time Thief Reader to encourage him to use his effect. Now we're going to go Call by the Grave, targeting the Sharon in the graveyard to hopefully shut that off. Now Keldo is going to activate here, preventing us from banishing the Sharon in the graveyard, shuffling 5 of his cards back into his deck, but it does at the very least prevent him from conducting a fusion summon. So it was not an effort totally in vain, but it did not have the desired impact. It does prevent them from fusion summoning though. Redoer is activating here, spinning that card back to the top of our deck. Kaleido Heart also doing its job. He's just going to go into the battle phase, he's just going to crash, and that's the best thing he could do in that situation. Realistically, it's not a situation that really has a fantastic ending. We can't even say like summon it in defense and just sit on it, because if we do that, then he just goes for the field spell. With the field spell, he boosts himself up by 500 and sucks to suck, right? So it's just one of those situations where you sort of reap what you sow. Unfortunately, we made a very good effort at breaking as much of that board as we possibly could. We made a phenomenal effort. I feel like that we definitely did a pretty good job of shutting down as much of it as we possibly could. But there's only so much you can do in the face of Tier 1 Tearlament, right? There's only so much you can do. So unfortunately, we catch an L here. It happens, but you know what? I still feel like showing that off as a way of showing the versatility of just the constant extension of Blackwings and what you can do. I still feel like that's pretty good showing, because come on, let's see the majority of decks, right? Try to break a board like that. That shit is tough. Either way, let's get into game 4. Alrighty, now this one's a bit of a doozy here, so we're going to be speeding this one up. Unfortunately, no Black Whirlwind or Simoon here. We are going to grab Shamal off Sudri though. Shamal dropping itself to the graveyard to grab ourselves a Whirlwind. Vata now using its effect, tributing itself to go into the Black Winged Dragon. We're going to now revive the Vata from the graveyard, while Shamal is going to grab us back Harmattan from the grave. Kelbeck, unfortunately, going to slow our plays down quite a lot by bouncing the Blackwing Dragon back into our extra deck. You'll notice that that will happen quite a bit. It's a very powerful play against Blackwings, but it's not the end of the world. We can definitely make it happen. Whirlwind bouncing back to hand to revive the Zephyros. We'll activate it again. Going to bring out the Harmattan, doubling its level up to 4, so we can bring out Boreas Storm. Boreas Storm then milling a card from the deck to copy its level. We'll send Shamal, so it's now a level 8, bringing out our Black Winged Dragon. Reviving them from the graveyard, the Boreas Storm. Now we're going to tribute off the Blackwing Dragon to bring out a token, and use these two to go into the Blackwinged Assault Dragon. Blackwinged Assault Dragon requires a Synchro Tuner monster, but its non-tuner can be whatever you want. So the Boreas Storm plus the Sudri is more than sufficient, and now with a Blackwing Dragon and a Boreas Storm in the grave, we can bring out a Blackwinged Assault Dragon. So we've got the double burn on board, we got some interruptions. Now for every monster effect our opponent activates, they're going to take 1400 points of damage. They're going to drop an Agido for a Mudora here. We're going to quickly banish that Agido. Not the smartest play I've ever made, because we should have held off until he activated the effect of the Agido. Well, I mean, I guess it's twofold, right? If we had done that, there was the possibility he would have banished the Mudora directly from the field in order to stop the Agido from getting banished, which still would have been somewhat beneficial for us. But I really didn't want him to mill 5 cards, right? We were just out of that other tournament match, and I was traumatized, right? We did not want him to be milling cards. He's going to go into the Exciton Knight here. He's trying to basically clear our board while using up the lowest amount of possible resources. So we're going to imperm his Exciton Knight here just so that we can protect our board. It would basically destroy the whole board, right? We've got the Blackwinged Assault Dragon. Now, because of our Black Feather Whirlwind, we do have the ability to protect one of our Blackwing cards from destruction by removing one of these Black Feather counters that you see on my Assault Dragons. They're going to go into Zeus. Zeus is fine, going to activate it right away, and it's just going to get negated by Chinook. It's only a 2 material Zeus, so that is the one and only time he gets to activate that effect. He was literally just trying to clear our board while taking the absolute minimum possible amount of damage. He takes an extra 1400 to the face here. He does bounce back one of our Assault Dragons, meaning the amount of damage he's taking per card is somewhat reduced. I will give him that much. He is going to go into a Baguska here to try and buy himself some time. So the next couple of turns go by pretty slowly, so they do. We grab an Ash Blossom for draw, nothing really to do, so we end up just passing. He's going to drop an Ash to try and grab himself an Earth Fairy. We're going to Ash that because I doubt he's going to draw into a card that's going to allow him to do something ashable, basically. So that's totally fine by us. Again, he's going to keep that Baguska in defense. We're going to set up an Imperm that we just top deck. That's going to be pretty useful later on, but for now we're just playing defense. We don't need to worry about anything else. Baguska detaching its last material, dropping Exchange of the Spirit to the graveyard, which is a very unfortunate top deck for us now, because that's us locked out of the graveyard. We are going to be relying upon getting a decent card here. Ash Blossom, not exactly fantastic, but you know what? We can't sit around forever just waiting on our opponent. We're going to... Basically, we had 2 possible plays. We could have just left the Baguska and it would have destroyed itself during the next standby phase, but the problem with that is that at 2800 defense, we would have been reliant upon our Black Feather Whirlwind to keep our Blackwinged Assault Dragon on the board. So instead, I decided to get a little bit aggressive. We're going to negate the Baguska and then swing in, take out the Zeus. So now he has to find another way to destroy the Blackwinged Assault Dragon, but he has to do it twice instead of just once, because we can now protect it using the Black Feather Whirlwind, and we don't need to worry about a guaranteed destruction attempt from the Zeus. if that makes sense. It basically just allows us to keep our dragon around a little bit longer. Baguska does, of course, pop itself. They're going to drop Sulik to the graveyard, grabbing an Agido here from the deck. Now, of course, Sulik doesn't activate when it's sent to the graveyard as cost. He's going to negate our dragon before starting to make some plays here. Mudora shuffling 3 back into the deck. He's planning on going into Zeus again. We're going to go Keldo here. Keldo summoning itself out to the field after dropping that Agido to the grave. Grabbing himself a Mudora as well. We're going to Ash that Agido. That should shut him down here. He doesn't have any other major plays he can make, but he does have the ability to go in for an Exceed summon. He's going to go into the Exciton Knight yet again. He does nuke our board successfully this time, destroying his own Gravekeeper's trap though, so that means we're no longer locked out of the graveyard and we don't take any damage this turn. He does, however, have a Zeus. So we really need a solid top deck here, and we draw one. We draw a Vata. That means that he has to Zeus this no matter what, otherwise he simply loses the game, and he does have to do that, which puts us in a position where as long as he doesn't top deck something good, we win, and he top decks Foolish Burial. Quite possibly the strongest card currently sitting in his deck, the best possible top deck other than maybe a Rhinoheart, and he gets it, goes into the Kikalos. Kikalos grabbing him a Murley from the deck here, basically going to send Kit to the graveyard, summon the Murley, mill 8 cards from the decks to the graveyard. What is he going to mill? Let's see what we could have won. We're going to send Crime, Rhinoheart, what was this? So Crime, Rhinoheart, Ash, Imperm, Maxi, Crossout, Havness, and Tortoise. Not a single usable card. He milled 8 and didn't hit a single usable card. So we take the 38 on the chin like a champ. Going into our next turn, we top deck the Immaculate Sudreys, normal summoning the Sudrey, grabbing another Vata from the deck, and this is GG's. Vata summons itself, tags itself out, synchro summoning out a Black-Winged Dragon. Shamal then's going to banish itself from the graveyard, grabbing ourselves a Chinook from the grave, but Keldo is going to prevent us from doing that. That's fine. It really doesn't matter to us. He shuffles back his own Mudora, which I thought was pretty interesting. I don't know if I agree with that play, but sure. Either way, Sudrey tributes itself, summons out a token. 2+8 will give us a... Oh, sorry, no. The Blackwing Dragon's going to reduce and inflict some damage here over this, but it doesn't matter. All we needed was the damage, so now 32 over 800 gives us exactly 2,400 points of damage. Pretty solid play. Definitely a bit of a tense one. There was obviously the moments in the middle where it was getting quite slow, but yeah, ultimately, good game, beating Tiddlement. Let's get into the deck profile. Alrighty, so what are our overall thoughts of the deck after playing it? Overall, I like the deck. I feel like we're in a position where the Blackwinged Assault Dragon, having a double Assault Dragon setup is actually a powerful enough situation in the current meta, because many decks require quite a lot of activations before they can put up anything threatening. The Blackwinged Assault Dragon has the ability to inflict a ton of damage to the opponent. It can protect itself from destruction thanks to your Black Feather Whirlwind, and if it does basically need to go nuclear, it can tribute itself to nuke the entire board. So there's definitely a lot going on with this card, and it does bring a lot to the strategy, plus it does have a number of unique cards, such as the Full Armor Master, which gives it a level of versatility that many decks can't even dream of. This card being completely unaffected by card effects means that even in the most tricky of matchups, you always have a powerful card that you can fall back on. So we're going to go through the deck list now. We're going to remove the hand traps first of all, because I feel like that's sort of very subjective. You can do whatever you want with those slots. We got the triple Maxi. We've got a double triple Tactics Talent. We've got triple Imperm and double Called by the Grief. So that's we got 10 basically hand traps. You can do whatever you want. I would honestly, I would be super tempted to play this at 3 over playing one of the hand traps. I would maybe tag one of them out to put another Chinook in. Not only does it serve as it does basically a very similar job to something like Imperm, it also generates a crazy amount of advantage by sending a Blackwing Synchro to the graveyard or a Blackwing Dragon to the graveyard from the extra deck, which is insane. Plus the attack reduction. I don't know, it just in general, Chinook is a very good card, right? So I would probably play this 3. The other main point being that it can be used as cost for Simoon as well. So that's something to consider, just for you to think about. I would maybe think about playing this at 3 over one of the hand traps, but that is entirely your call. I'm just throwing it out there as an idea. Getting into the main deck then. Blackwing Orochi the Squall, just here as a level 1 special summon. Many of the Blackwings, Orochi included, can special summon themselves to the field whenever you just control another Blackwing monster. So Orochi can special summon itself. It's a level 1 tuner. If it's sent to the graveyard as synchro material, you can change the battle position of a card in the field, which is, you know, not particularly useful. But it is a low attack point monster with a unique level among the archetype that can be very easily searched for off of Black Whirlwind. So having it there for that level of versatility to go into things like your level 7 synchro monsters, like the Raikiri in particular, would be very beneficial. So I think Orochi at 1, definitely a pretty neat card for sure. We've got Sharnga, one of the brand new cards. I feel like this card is really, really solid. I don't think playing it at anything more than 1 is necessary. Basically, it has a similar effect where it gets to special summon itself to the field. However, its condition is that there needs to be a monster with 2,000 attack points or more on the field, either side. So Sharnga, its effect can be a little bit more restrictive, but in certain situations it can be less restrictive, especially if you're going second. So Sharnga is definitely really good, mandatory 1 of at least. It has an effect that allows you to banish itself from the graveyard so long as you control a Blackwing Synchro monster to target a face-up card your opponent controls and destroy it. Vital card for sniping a really problematic back row in like Floodgate matches and things like that because of the synergy with the Full Armor Master. Full Armor Master being face up on the field, unaffected by your opponent's card effects, means that it's able to stick around and give you field presence while you battle your way through Floodgates, while Sharnga is able to snipe off any particularly problematic cards. We've got Harmattan. You can play this card at 1 or 2. I briefly played it at 3 and I didn't hate it, but I don't think anything more than 2 is necessary. Basically, it just special summons itself to the field, and when it does, if you control another Blackwing, it can increase its own level by the level of a monster in your field. That is an incredible ability, and it comes up a lot. So absolutely, the only reason I'm playing 2 of it, typically I want to send it to the graveyard off of our next card's effect, and then recycle it back using Shamal, but I don't want to open up it in my hand and then not have one in deck to use, right? So I think playing 2 of it's fine for that reason. But if you wanted to cut it to 1 in favor of playing a different Blackwing, like perhaps Blackwing Gust, that is also incredibly valid. Gust will special summon itself to the field while you control no monsters. It's similar level, similar attack point range. It serves most of the same purposes, but I just feel like Harmattan was so much better that there was no real reason to play Gust. That's just my opinion though. Getting into Vata, Vata being one of the brand new cards, a UR. This card's incredible. It's really freaking good. Basically, you can special summon it to your field as long as you control another Blackwing, similar to the others, but it has an effect that allows you to send Blackwing cards from your deck to the graveyard, as well as this card from your field to the graveyard, to conduct a synchro summon. So, utilizing this, you're going to use it as well as either a level 6 with this in the form of some Moon from your main deck, or ideally a level 4 and a level 2 in the form of Zephyros and Harmattan to basically summon out your Blackwinged Dragon, which is a card that you need to have in play in order to utilize the secondary summoning conditions of your Blackwinged Assault Dragon, right? So this facilitates that whole play, gives you a really easy access tuner as well that you can recycle back. You will recycle this card back using the effects of Shamal, using the effect of Black Whirlwind, Black Feather Whirlwind. So yes, absolutely vital card. If you're playing it anything less than 3, you're playing the deck wrong. It's as simple as that. Blackwing Chinook, you can play this anywhere between 1 to 3, at least 1, of course, but I'm super tempted to put this to 3. Basically, it's a hand trap. You send it from your hand or field to the graveyard, target a face-up card your monster your opponent controls, negate its effects, take away 700 of its attack points, and send a Blackwing Synchro monster from your extra deck to the graveyard. Really incredible card. Not only does it give you that negate on a quick play so long as you control a Dark Synchro monster, it also facilitates setting up some of your tuners into the graveyard, some of your more problematic cards that you don't want to spend resources summoning, right? You don't want to spend resources summoning a Blackwing Dragon if you don't absolutely have to. Or a Boreas Storm. If you can throw a Boreas Storm to the graveyard without needing to commit resources to summon it, you will, although this card is pretty phenomenal to summon, to be fair. But either way, if you can throw something to the grave without needing to dedicate resources to it, that's phenomenal, especially considering your Blackwing Assault Dragon will just banish them straight from the graveyard. So this card's insane. Gale is one of those cards that I'm always on the verge of taking out, but it hasn't caused me any problems yet, right? So I haven't. It's a level 3 tuner, it can special summon itself in the hand, it can have the attack points of a monster on the field, and that's permanent. It permanently halves them, which is important to know. It's mainly here so that alongside any of our mini level 4s, we can form a Raikiri, or potentially an Obsidian Hawk Joe, although to be honest, I would probably cut Joe for another Boreas Storm. We'll get to that later. It basically makes your level 7s a little bit more accessible, but that's not like super useful, right? So it's up to you. I think it's a decent attack point range. The 1300 makes it very easily searchable off of Black Whirlwind. It is a decent extender. So I think it definitely deserves a spot. If it caused me problem though, I would take it out. This card is definitely not core, but it is pretty neat. We've got Steam, another level 3 tuner. If this card leaves your field, you get to special summon a Steam token, which is just a level 1 monster basically, to the field. If it's in your graveyard, you can tribute a monster you control to special summon it from the graveyard. So you can basically just replace itself. It does, again, it's one of those cards that makes some of your other plays more accessible. Primarily your level 7s, again, although it can help in other situations too. But it's primarily those. So Steam the Cloak is a phenomenal card. It's just not the most useful card in this particular deck, unless you're trying to go through your level 7s or rank all the way up into an additional level 10, but it's up to you. Bora the Spear, a generic level 4 that will special summon itself to the field if you control another Blackwing. This one's a non-tuner. It's important to have at least one non-tuner. It has a pretty decent attack point range at 1700, meaning if you draw this card alongside your Black Whirlwind, you're actually able to search your deck for Simoon in order to continue your combos. So it's useful for its attack point range. It's useful as a level 4 extender. So again, I think the Bora is definitely pretty damn cool. It does a very similar job to Chris, which one could argue would almost be better. But again, it's basically the same thing. Chris, I'll bring this card up just so you actually know what I'm talking about. It does basically the exact same thing, except it's got slightly more attack points. Where are we? It's in here somewhere. Trust me. This was not, there. It is. It does basically the same thing, right? So you could throw this in instead. Yeah, it's the exact same though. Zephyros the Elite. This card, while in a graveyard, you can return a face-up card you control back to the hand to special summon this to the field. That is particularly useful for two main reasons. Number one, the Black Whirlwind that you set to your field off of Simoon will go to the graveyard during the end phase, so having Zephyros in your graveyard to bounce it back to hand before that happens will save you some damage and will save you losing a Black Whirlwind. Pretty damn cool. Its primary use though is recycling the effect of your Black Feather Whirlwind. This card is a once per turn effect, but it's not a hard once per turn, meaning if you can use its effect, bounce it back to your hand off of Zephyros, and then activate it and use its effect again twice in the same turn. So Black Feather Whirlwind, definitely really cool and works alongside these Zephyros. You'll be sending this card from your deck to the graveyard off of Vata's effect. Its summon from the grave effect is once per duel, so we only play it at one really because we have constant access to it through the likes of Vata, and we can't use it multiple times, so there's no real point in having multiple Zephyros, at least in my opinion. We've got Shamal. Shamal has two primary effects. You can send this card from your hand or field to the graveyard, place Black Feather Whirlwind directly onto your field. If a Blackwing Synchro monster is summoned to the field while this card's in your graveyard, you can banish it, grab a Blackwing monster back from your graveyard to your hand, and then take 700 points of damage. So Shamal is definitely really good. It's a level 4 tuner, which makes it unique in the deck, and the deck doesn't have a lot of level 4 tuners going on. That's probably the main reason I played it 3 instead of cutting it down to maybe 2 or 1. You can get away with playing this card at 1 because it is very easily searchable off of the Sudri. Sudri then also being searchable through Simoon and blah blah blah, so on and so forth. But it being a level 4 tuner, as well as having 1600 attack points to combine with your Black Whirlwind and being able to revive itself and be recycled back off of other cards, playing 3 of it's fine. I feel like having the consistency of grabbing the Feather Whirlwind without needing to search for your deck for Shamal, it means you can free up your Sudri search for maybe a Vata, and then your Black Whirlwinds for something else. So it is just another combo piece that you don't need to search for if you open it up. Speaking of Sudri, another one of the brand new cards, a UR. Whenever this card is normal summoned, you can add any card that mentions the Blackwing Dragon directly from your deck to your hand. That's going to be the likes of your Vata, your Chinook, and your Shamal, as well as Black Feather Whirlwind. and if you're playing it, another really powerful card I can search for is the Blackwing Twin Shadow. Now, we weren't playing it in this deck, but you absolutely could if you really wanted to. It's a really, really solid card. I wasn't fully utilizing it back when I was initially doing my testing alongside the Silverwind the Ascendant. Let's not confuse the deck right now, though. We can talk about that in a future video. But you can search a whole wide range of new powerful cards, making his searching invaluable. At 1400 attack points, he can be searched off of some moon as well, which makes that pretty good. He also has another effect that allows you to tribute a monster to special summon a Phantom Glimmer token, which is a level 2 tuner monster, and that allows you to basically conduct certain synchro summons you wouldn't otherwise be able to do. Sudri, definitely phenomenal, mandatory 3 of all the way. And speaking of mandatory 3 of, we have Simoon, the classic starter of Blackwings. Basically, if you control no monsters, you can grab this card to your hand, banish a Blackwing monster from your hand to place a Black Whirlwind from your deck face up, and then normal summon this card. And that basically will trigger your Black Whirlwind, which we'll get to in a minute. But it basically means that this guy can normal summon himself in addition to your regular normal summoner set without tributing, and it searches your deck for anything with less than 1600 attack points. Mainly your Sudri, as well as setting up a Black Whirlwind, so your Sudri's normal summon is going to just chain off of crazy amounts of searches. Simoon, definitely mandatory 3 of, the best starter card in the entire deck. Nocto Vision Dragon is a little bit out of place, and I know that it's primarily here as a small world bridge. You can basically, Small World allows you the consistency of grabbing any monster in your deck. You just banish one of your Blackwings, banish the Nocto Vision Dragon directly from your deck, and then you can grab any one of your Blackwings to your hand. So Nocto Vision Dragon primarily here as a bridge for Small World. You can also use Radian, the Kaiju. Typically speaking, I'll usually play with one of each because I don't want to like draw my only Small World bridge, right? I would much rather have one in deck. So Radian and Nocto Vision Dragon both do very, very similar jobs. And you can play one of each. You can play one or the other if you want. It doesn't matter. It's up to you. I'm going to leave them both here. They both do the same job. Pot of Prosperity. Check the top 3 or 6 cards of your deck, depending on how much you're willing to banish from your extra deck. This is a card I always find myself on the verge of cutting. You definitely don't need to play Pot of Prosperity, but it's pretty useful, so I don't see why you wouldn't. There are some cards in your extra deck that you don't often summon. You're not going to miss them if you banish them off of Prosperity, and you don't really draw cards off of this deck. You do a shitload of searching, but you don't really draw, so Prosperity isn't too far out of place here. Small World, like I said, will grab you any Blackwing in your... It will basically trade any Blackwing for another Blackwing in your deck. You'll banish a Blackwing in your hand, you'll banish either Radiant or Nocto Vision from your deck, and then you can grab any other Blackwing and replace it, add it back to your hand, basically. So it just lets you tag something out. 3 copies of Black Whirlwind. This card's incredible. So whenever a Blackwing monster is normal summoned to your field, you get to grab a Blackwing monster from your deck to your hand with attack points less than the monster you summoned. So Simoon, of course, putting this onto the field means that when this gets its additional normal summon, you search your deck for something with less than 1600 attack points. Of course, that's an additional normal summon. So when you grab your Sudri then when you normal summon this isn't once per turn or anything like that. This will grab you another monster with less than 1400 attack points this time. Sudri also doing his own searching, so you can see how quickly that can scale out of control, especially if you have multiple copies, because multiple copies will chain onto each other as you saw in the gameplay, and you will just draw an insane amount of cards. You'll just have a crazy, crazy huge hand. And lastly, the singular Black Feather Whirlwind. Whenever you special summon a Dark Synchro monster from your extra deck, you can target a Blackwing monster that's either banished or in your graveyard, and resummon it so long as it has less attack points than the monster you just summoned. Pretty straightforward. You can also protect a dark monster you control from destruction by removing a Black Feather counter from your field instead, which is one of the counters that the Blackwing Assault Dragon will add to itself through its own effect. So some built-in protection, built-in extender by reviving. It's a once per turn, but it's a soft once per turn, meaning you can reuse it multiple times off of Zephyros, which makes it even more useful. So you basically, it's 2 Monster Reborns built into 1, and you can search it directly from your deck off of Shamal by discarding this. Phenomenal card. I wouldn't play more than one of it, but it's really good. Getting into the extra deck, we've got nothing. The Starlight, if this card summoned, inflicting 800 points of damage, then reduce something by 800 attack and defense, fairly, if sort of whatever effect. It also has the ability, however, to grant you an additional normal summon for a Blackwing monster in addition to your regular normal summoner set. Now that is pretty damn incredible considering your Black Whirlwind, right? So if you get an additional normal summoner set in combination with one or maybe even two copies of Blackwing Whirlwind, you're going to have your entire deck in your hand, right? It's going to be crazy. It's just going to be nuts. Boreas Storm, the Wicked Wind. I would be very, 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 very tempted to knock out the Exceed package here to play more than to play a third copy of this, and to play another copy of Chinook. That would be my sort of way of changing this if I were to make any changes. Basically, this card on summon will send a Blackwing monster from your deck to the graveyard, and this card's level becomes that card's level. It has another effect that you don't really use very often. If it destroys a monster by battle, you can banish a Blackwing from your graveyard or field to special summon the destroyed monster to your field. So it kind of has like that stealing effect, but that's you're never going to use that. It's primarily here because, number one, it's a tuner synchro monster. This card is a tuner. That is huge. That is its main point of utility, and the fact that it can modulate its level by sending some useful cards to your graveyard. So something like a Sharanga, is a very, very good send because it becomes a level 2, which is a very versatile level within the strategy, as well as putting a Sharanga in your graveyard, which will then be able to banish itself for its pop effect. So this definitely has a lot of versatility behind it. It's typically what you're going to send to the graveyard off of Chinook as well, which is why I will play an additional copy, purely because it makes summoning your Blackwing Assault Dragon even easier. Obsidian Hawk Joe. I have yet to use this card. Basically, you just get to revive a level 5 or higher winged beast from your graveyard. Very mediocre effect in most cases. Whenever your opponent activates a card or effect that targets this card, or if it's targeted for an attack, you can target another Blackwing you control and shift that attack / targeting to that card. Very mediocre, if I'm being honest with you. Again, not a card I've used, probably not a card I'm going to use, so you can cut that out. If you really wanted to keep it Blackwing focused and put something in to replace it, you can replace it with Rainstorm or Chidori, right? But we were playing Hawk Joe, so here it stays. Raikiri. It can, if you only use Blackwings for it, or if you use at least one Blackwing in its summon, it becomes a tuner, so that's interesting. Useless, but interesting. It does mean that on occasion you can use it as the material for your Blackwing Assault Dragon from the field, but it loses its tuner status when it goes to the graveyard, so it's not the most impactful thing. But its primary use is the fact that once per turn you can target cards your opponent controls up to the number of other Blackwings in your field and pop them. So it's a pretty decent card going second. You pop a bunch of cards. We got 2 copies of the Blackwinged Dragon. It just 2 copies I think is key here. I think you need at least 2. It's very easily sent to the graveyard off of something like Chinook, very easily summoned out free of charge by the Vata. So you basically just want to get this card into your graveyard as quickly as you can so that you can banish it for your Blackwinged Assault Dragon. Very straightforward. Its effect is pretty mediocre. We've got Draco Berserker of the Tenyu. Most of the time you're going to spend your time locked into dark monsters only. That's why we're playing this guy over any other generic rank 8. But basically he is just that. He's a generic level 8, 3000 attack points, absolute OTK machine. If your opponent activates a monster effect, you can banish that monster, which is pretty damn good against the likes of Tearlaments. Now, you do need to bear in mind that it doesn't work against cards that are no longer in the place they were when they activated the effect. So if something, for example, sends itself to the graveyard for cost or anything like that, you're not going to be able to banish those because they're not in the same place. But something like most Tearlament cards will send themselves to the graveyard upon resolution to gain their effects, which means Draco Berserker is perfect for banishing those cards. It means you can banish a Rolkalos, you can banish a Kaleido Heart, a Kitkalos, whatever it is, Draco Berserker will get banishing. He also, if he attacks and destroys a monster, he gains that monster's attack points and can attack again. OTK machine. The Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss. I should really speed up here, I'm rambling like crazy. This card is an Omni-Negate, target a face-up card in the field, negate its effects until the end of the turn. Primarily going to summon this off of a Blackwing Dragon and an Orochi, that's pretty much it. Full Armor Master, unaffected by opponent's card effects. If your opponent's monster activates its effect, you place a wedge counter on that card. Then during your turn, you can steal one of your opponent's monsters that have a wedge counter on it, and during the end of that turn, all monsters that have wedge counters get destroyed, including the one you stole unless you used it for something. So it's pretty decent. It's mainly here because it's got 3000 attack and defense, and it's unaffected by other cards, so this is the beat stick among beat sticks. But it is definitely very versatile, especially in back row based games, or if you're just looking for an out to a deck that you don't understand. Typically the Full Armor Master requires decks go really far out of their way just to deal with it. Then lastly, we've got the Black-Winged Assault Dragon. This card, again, we've talked about this already. You can either synchro summon it, or you can special summon it by banishing a Black-Winged Dragon and a tuner synchro monster from your field or graveyard. Every time your opponent activates an effect, it gets a Black Feather counter when the effect resolves, and then you inflict 700 points of damage to your opponent. You can also tribute this card if it has 4 or more Black Feather counters on it to nuke the board. Pretty straightforward card. In terms of completing the extra deck, I'm just going to leave it there. We were playing these 2 cards, Raider's Knight and Arc Rebellion Exceed Dragon. We never ever used them. So if you were of the men where you wanted to make this a pure Synchro Blackwing deck, if you're really sort of up there, you can put in some Sohya. On occasion, you might want a level 5 Synchro. There's not really a ton of fantastic cards you can include. You could put in the Chaos Ruler if you really wanted to. You don't gain a ton of advantage off of stuff being in your graveyard, but you gain something off of it. So maybe you want to play the Chaos Ruler, maybe you want to play Chidori as a beat stick, maybe you want to play the Supernova Dragon. You know, that's another possibility. You can play the Supernova Dragon. This requires no changes to your main deck. It is a bit of a pain in the ass to summon, but it requires no major changes to the main deck. So yeah, that's pretty much it. In terms of your hand traps, again, just sort of put in whatever the hell you want. We were playing 3 of this, 3 Imperm. We were playing 2 Called by the Grave, and I believe it was, what, double Ash or something like that? I can't remember. I'll just bring it back up. But anyway, that's the deck profile. I was pretty impressed by this deck, if I'm going to be honest with you. I really did enjoy playing it. Yes, it was double triple tactics talent. It was an awful lot of fun. I feel like it's decently competitive. I don't feel like it's going to be topping any major tournaments anytime soon. The strategy is somewhat fragile, but it finds itself nestled into a strong place in the meta right now, because many of the decks it's going to be competing against are decks that rely upon a significant number of effect activations before they can establish any major sort of removal or control. Like sprites get eaten alive by this, tier elements really struggle with this, at least whenever you've gone first and set up your board. And even if you're going second, typically speaking, the Armor Master is going to give them a run for their money. It's not an easy card to deal with. But anyway, I'm going to stop rambling. If you got this far into the video for whatever reason, thanks. Subscribe if you haven't, like the video if you haven't, and you can join the Discord as well below, where we talk about this, where we build decks live with one another, and we get an awful lot of help. That's everything I've got to say, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye bye.